Volodymyr Zelenskyy hoping for constructive talks with U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg a day after trading barbs with President Donald Trump, who called the Ukrainian leader, quote, a dictator. Mr. Zelenskyy proceeded to accuse Mr. Trump of succumbing to what he calls Russian disinformation. Our tensions have run high between the two leaders following high-level talks between top U.S. and Russian officials that did not include either Ukraine or Europe. And for more on this meeting, we go to Stuart Smith in Kiev and Nick Harper in Washington, D.C. Stuart, let's start with you. What can we expect out of those talks between Mr. Zelenskyy and Keith Kellogg, given the war of words that unfolded between Mr. Zelenskyy and the U.S. president?
Well, President Trump said on Thursday that he believes that Russia holds all the cards. President Zelensky's job in that meeting taking place around now will be to try to convince the United States that Ukraine does hold valuable cards as well. He did indeed say that he hopes and that it's very important that this meeting is constructive. He said that it's important as well, though, that the situation with the United States more generally is constructive. So despite that war of words, he is still keen to get US support. And that was repeated by the head of Ukraine's military intelligence earlier, that while the US and Ukraine may not see eye to eye on a lot of issues, including the fact that Ukraine wants to be involved in these negotiations from the get-go, it does still need the United States support, or it will be in a very, very difficult position, he said. So together, Zelenskyy is saying America and Europe need to provide any guarantees as part of any post-war ceasefire deal. As to what Keith Kellogg will be looking for here in Ukraine, he said earlier that he is hoping to listen to the concerns of those in Kiev. He's already spoken to, reportedly, intelligence, security and military officials here. During this meeting with President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president has suggested it's going to be more of a negotiation than just a meeting. This will be Ukraine's opportunity to hit back at points of concern for the US, but also to put across its view for how this war should end.
Oh, Nick, Mr. Trump has been open in the past about his reluctance to keep supplying Ukraine with what we just heard there from Stuart, valuable aid that Ukraine really needs. With these latest remarks, does that suggest a substantial change in the policy in terms of US aid to Ukraine?
Well, it certainly seems so. I mean, Donald Trump for a long time has been making it clear that he wants to turn off the taps to Ukraine. He campaigned on that promise of stopping military aid to the country. And now that he's in office, he is making it very clear that he wants to end really any connections with Ukraine. Some very strong comments over the last few days, including suggesting that billions of dollars of US money sent there over the last 3 years has, in his words, gone missing. We know on top of that, he has paused all international funding for 90 days. Obviously, we saw the crippling of USAID, the Agency for International Development, but that has a knock-on effect on Ukraine as well. There is some suggestions that he's looking to do a deal with Ukraine to take about 50% of the country's rare earth minerals, not in return for military aid or security guarantees, but rather, it would seem, as a payback for the last 3 years of funding from the US to Ukraine, but certainly concerns from allies that Donald Trump seems to be changing the diplomatic calculation, getting closer to Russia and further away from Ukraine. We saw that this week with the talks in Saudi between top US and Russian officials. Those countries saying that's more about normalizing their relations rather than trying to exclude Ukraine from a peace deal. But of course, the comments on Wednesday from Donald Trump twice saying that Zelenskyy is a dictator has certainly concerned European allies. We've seen Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, come out very strongly in support of Zelenskyy, and also the Chancellor of Germany, Olaf Scholz, saying that it's very dangerous to suggest there is no democratic legitimacy for Zelenskyy.
Oh, thanks. And Stuart Smith in Kiev and Nick Harper in Washington, D.C., spelling out, as we just heard, those change in calculations in Washington on how much support it needs to give to Ukraine.